Okay, good evening. It's a little later than I expected today, but it's 51 degrees here. It's freezing. So I just want to say, top of the real estate market to ya. Welcome to another episode of Katie Horgan Real Estate Podcast. All right, this is where I'm going to mix fun with facts to help you navigate the world of real estate. Okay, so now it's the weekend before St. Patrick's Day, which means plenty of green beer, questionable dance moves, and a whole lot of luck, right? But is luck really a factor in real estate? Let's talk about real estate myths, superstitions, and how to really find that pot of gold at the end of the buying rainbow. Look at me with all my sayings today. Such shenanigans. All right, so Shamrocks, Shenanigans, and smart home buying. So you can reach me here. Get your keys from Katie at gmail.com. I just got an email from someone actually, but it was somebody trying to sell me something. Feel free to reach out to me about anything, okay? So let's talk about lucky home buying myths, okay? Fact or fiction. So we're going to start with classic real estate myths that might sound lucky, but could actually lead you astray faster than a leprechaun on the run. And the first one is you need a down payment of 20% to buy a home. And like I said, I put these on here so I can remember these, and then I have notes too. The only time you absolutely need 20% is if you want to avoid private mortgage insurance, or called PMI, but even then it's not a deal breaker. And then so sometimes there's a whole lot of other things I can talk about with this, and there's lots of ways to get around it. Like a lot of people want a 15-year mortgage, but you could do a 30-year and just pay the equivalent of one payment a month, or one payment extra a year, and you can cut your loan by 10 years. So that's good. So it depends on your loan too. Conventional versus FHA. On a conventional loan, you only have to put 3% down. On an FHA loan, only 3.5%. And it also depends on investments versus a second home. So there's a higher percentage there. It's anywhere between 10 and 20, but it's different, okay? So you can get into a home at a pretty low price. And then there's also down payment programs and things like that. So myth number 2, your credit has to be perfect. Sure. A higher credit score gets you better rates, but you don't need to be a financial unicorn to buy a home. You like that? You like that? Okay. There are loan programs for a range of credit scores, and sometimes making small improvements like paying off a credit card can boost your score quickly. So if you don't have good credit, you can also buy a prepaid credit card. If you don't have credit cards and you don't have any credit yet, you just buy that, $200, $300, buy gas with it, pay it off every month. And it will help build your credit score. Myth number 3, you should always buy the most house you can afford. No. Not unless you want to live on ramen noodles for the next 30 years, like I did in college. That's what they call house rich, cash poor, okay? So while it may seem really appealing to have this really fancy dancy house, I always say to people, it's funny because one of my friends said, well, some people don't usually buy a house and then sell in 2 years, do they? And I'm like, yeah, all the time, especially in Arizona. So you buy a house, make some money on it, and then buy a house that you really want. And you can do this a lot. And then you can buy another house and invest. I mean, there's a whole lot of things, right? So you you don't need to buy your dream home right away. In fact, you probably shouldn't unless you can budget it, okay? So you need to look at what you can comfortably afford and still have a life. You like how I put a troll in there? So since it's St. Patrick's Day weekend, the weekend before St. Patrick's Day, let's talk about some St. Patrick's Day superstitions. So they have this one, the Irish fairy tree curse. This is in Ireland. In Ireland, it's bad luck to cut down a fairy tree. In home buying, people have their own versions, like never buying a house with the number 13. And I sort of talked about numbers last week with my podcast. Some cultures even avoid certain directions or floor plans. So they won't buy a house that is like 5225 north something, maybe, or east or whatever. They won't buy that. And then sometimes they want to have the floor plans just so they can look at it ahead of time. But that's where this comes into play. Good vibes, good versus bad vibes on walkthroughs. So if you're a person who gets a feel for a place, then you definitely want to view the property before buying. That seems like a no-brainer, right? But there are people like investors. If you're an investor and you're just looking to flip it or Airbnb it or rent it, then you might not need to walk the property, okay? And there's people that buy from out of town. But when I'm So work with a trusted real estate agent like me. I do lots of video things and we talk about everything. And then if you can, fly down for the inspection at least, or come over in the car, wherever you're coming from, to at least be there for that. And then you can kind of judge from that point. Okay. Now, here's some red flags that aren't, that was my old northern accent coming out there. Red flags that aren't lucky at all. Okay. Sorry. If the price seems too good to be true, it's probably a reason. Always ask, what's the catch? Expensive fixes, know what you're getting into. I've never run into this one before, a seller who won't allow an inspection. That seems strange, but I have run into this a lot, a seller who insists on selling the house as is, or states, oh, I gotta put this on Do Not Disturb, or states that they will not make any repairs. So that happens a lot, and that is it's a big red flag, especially if it is here. As is means that you can't, it doesn't, okay, here, I gotta come back to that, sorry. As is means that the sellers don't want to make any repairs, okay? So that's a red flag because you're like, what is wrong with the house? What do they know that they don't want to talk about or admit, you know? So as is does not mean, though, that you can't do an inspection as a buyer, and you can still ask for repairs. You still can, and I suggest that you do, because you don't want to walk into something that's a buddy pit, right? So here are some signs you've found a hidden gem. Whew, my brain is working fast today. It needs only cosmetic updates. New paint and floors are easy. Okay, that is easy. New paint and new flooring is easy to do. If it's in a growing neighborhood, buying in an up-and-coming area can mean instant equity. That's really good, isn't it? And then if it fits your budget and lifestyle, don't just think about today. Think about what your life will look like in 5 years. And just like I said, you might want to buy a house and just only live in it 2 years and then buy another house. You can do that every 2 years. You only have to live in a house 2 of the last 5 years in order to not suffer capital gains. So you really could plan a pretty good way of making money and then buying the houses that you want. Okay. Final thoughts already. Okay. Now that's your St. Patrick's Day home buying wisdom for the week. Woo! And it's St. Patrick's Day on Monday, so I'll have a different theme after that. Luck is great, but knowledge is even better. So whether you're buying, planning, or just dreaming, okay? Make sure that you work with a pro like me who can help you find that pot of gold at the end of the home buying rainbow. Woo! That's what I do all the time. And remember, no house is perfect, but knowing what to look for gives you the power to make a smarter decision before you get under contract. And if you have a crazy home buying story or a question you want me to cover in a future episode, comment or below or email me. I would love that, you guys. I would love that. Okay. Most importantly, that little thing that, that was from last week. I didn't leave that out of there. What? It's okay. So before we go, let me leave you. I'm drinking some hot chocolate today. And it says, hello, gorgeous. I think it's backwards on there though. Okay. Before we go, I'm going to leave you with an Irish toast. Okay, with my cupcake. May your mortgage be low, your neighbors be quiet, and may you always get approved for the home of your dreams. And you know what Squatch says. The journey begins with you. So be good to yourself. And this is my last podcast here in this house, and then I'll be back at my casa. So that's me. Horgan, I love you, and I'll see you next week. But I'm going to do one fancy thing before we go. I'm going to play the outro. Bye. I'll be working on an intro too.